When Eminem was freshly signed by Dr. Dre and his Slim Shady LP went through the roof, Eminem bought his first small house near a trailer park in Detroit. At that time, Eminem was on the road almost every day, but whenever he came home, the police were always at his doorstep because fans were waiting in front of his house or sometimes even in his pool. If he ever left the house to go shopping, a bunch of fans would stand at his doorstep and just start clapping because they had been waiting for Eminem for hours. Whenever Eminem was at home, strangers would knock on his door until Eminem almost lost his mind. So Eminem got himself a gun and waited for someone strange to knock on his door again. One day, the time had come. Eminem heard a loud knock at his front door and saw through the peephole a young man banging full force on his front door. Behind the young man was a car that had been waiting for the boy. So Eminem grabbed his weapon, opened the front door and pointed the gun at the boy's head, who immediately tried to flee to the car. But his friends were also frightened and just drove off without their friend. So the boy ran after the car, while Eminem realized that he would have to move out of the neighborhood.
The kids would come across the street, and they knock on the fucking door, and I start answering the door with a gun in their face.
On one of my favorite Eminem songs called Don't Approach Me, Eminem raps with Xzibit about this exact situation. Definitely give yourself this song.
It's not that I don't like you, it's just that when I'm not behind the mic, I'm a person who's just like you.
Before Redman became a star, he was, like many rappers, out on the streets hustling. He was dealing and made no secret of it. He even told his mother about it, and his mother only had one thing to say: no matter what you do on the streets, don't bring any of it home, or I'll put you out on the doorstep. So Redman always made sure that his mother didn't find out about his activities and stashed the stuff in his cap when he came home. But one day Redman was a little careless. On that day, Redman came home a little later and hurried to join his mother at the dinner table. Because he was in a hurry, he forgot to take off his cap first, and so his mother made him take off his cap during the meal. Redman, already tired from the day, carelessly took off his cap, causing a pile of bags to fall on the floor. He had broken his mother's only rule, so she put him out on the street that same evening. Today, Redman says that his mother did exactly the right thing because it made him more disciplined. I think it's about time for a Redman documentary. What do you think? If you're up for it, let me know in the comments.
And she's like, yo, take your hat off at the table. Took her hat off. Coke bottles everywhere. She said, get the fuck out.
If you had to name the top 10 rappers from the West Coast, then two rappers should definitely not be missing. Namely, Snoop Dogg and Ice Cube. Two rappers who now enjoy legendary status. But only a few people know how the two met. Although Ice Cube had recently told the story. Snoop Dogg and Ice Cube met at the release party for Snoop Dogg's debut album, Doggy Style. Ice Cube was also invited to this party. Suge Knight had rented a yacht especially for the party, and all the members of Death Row Records were present. When Ice Cube arrived at the yacht and saw all the gangbangers, he had a very bad feeling. But he still went on the yacht to meet Snoop. So Snoop Dogg and Ice Cube were able to talk to each other for the first time, even though the conversation was very brief. Because just as the yacht was about to leave the harbor, Ice Cube left the yacht again, with only one thought in his head.
I'm not getting in the water with Death Row.
Many people don't even know that there was a brief and unnecessary beef between Tupac and Xzibit due to a small misunderstanding. In 1995, Xzibit and Tupac simultaneously recorded their albums All Eyes on Me and At the Speed of Life, two classics. This resulted in the single How Do You Want It by Tupac, in which he rapped the following line.
All I want is money, fuck the fame, I'm a simple man.
And without knowing this line, Xzibit rapped the following words on his first single, Paparazzi.
It's a shame, you only in a rap game, only for the money and the fame, extra large.
On top of that, Xzibit's single came out exactly 1 week before Tupac's single. So Tupac and the Outlaws thought that Xzibit undercover wanted to diss Tupac. So Xzibit became the enemy of Tupac and the Outlaws. That's why Xzibit was dissed on the Outlaws song Bomb First with the following lines.
Got a little question for that nigga that made paparazzi. If you ain't in this rap game, but a motherfucking cash man, then what is your motherfucking purpose?
But Xzibit never intended to diss Tupac or the Outlaws. And that's why Xzibit never responded to the song. Just a few weeks after the diss against Xzibit and Tupac met again. They shook hands, but unfortunately didn't have time to talk about the misunderstanding. And just a few days later, Tupac was shot dead in Las Vegas. However, Xzibit still had the chance to talk to the Outlaws, so it quickly became clear that Xzibit never had a problem with Tupac or the Outlaws. In 2021, they even released a song together called One Nation, which unfortunately only has 200,000 views on YouTube today. But with this song, even the biggest critics could see that Xzibit and the Outlaws no longer had a feud, or maybe they never even had one.
And so everybody was hitting me, hey man, they diss you, they diss you on Machiavelli, man. I was like, damn, what the fuck I do? But once I heard it, then I was like, oh, you know, so I understood it. So there was no need to rebuttal because that's not what I meant.
In the 90s, Will Smith was at the BET Awards, where he had his first chance to meet Michael Jackson. Of course, there were lots of stars there, but Will only had eyes for Michael until he finally saw him from afar. Will was very excited and thought to himself, now I'm finally going to meet my idol. And at that very moment, everyone in the room became very restless. The security guards ran over to Will and told him they had to get him to safety because Suge Knight and his boys were causing trouble again. So the security guard grabbed him and put him in a storage room to keep him safe. Will stood there in the storage room, listening through the locked door as people ran away in panic, thinking to himself,
yo, this is crazy. Suge is a lunatic. He's still in jail, right?
When it slowly became quieter, Will heard a soft voice behind him. When he turned around, it was Michael Jackson, who had been put in the storage room just like Will. They gossiped a little about Suge Knight until the coast was clear and they could get out again. And that was the first and only time Will ever met Michael Jackson.
I was like, what happened? What happened? He said, Suge Knight happened. Opens this door and shoves me into like this dirty ass utility closet. And I hear, hey. I'm like, oh, I guess I got Suge Knight to thank for it.
And that was today's Sidetrack. Do you know of any other stories that aren't so well known in the media? Feel free to write them in the comments. Thank you for all your support, comments, and likes. Stay healthy, and we'll see you in the next video.